Let's see how fast I can get through this whole thing. There is a hidden language in biology and in science in general. A lot of it is Latin based, and the prefixes and suffixes give you a lot of information about what it is you're really learning. If you understand the root to the language, everything else becomes much more fluent. You will eventually be able to see a word you've never heard before in your entire life, but you'll know what it means. It's kind of cool, but it's really annoying to learn all these different words. You're going to need to know number words like mono and bi and tri, things like the difference between micro and macro, like astro means it's star-shaped, stuff like that. Even the difference between hypo and hyper. What's the difference between hypotension and hypertension? What about hypothyroidism and hyperthyroidism? So just by knowing a percentage of the language, it really helps in understanding what you're actually looking at. I provided a link for an Excel document below. You can check that out, and it has over 100 vocab words. There are also links to Quizlet. There are also links to other sites that offer a list of vocabulary for biology. Sometimes if you search medical terminology, that might also bring you some similar results. The very next thing you're going to need to learn is some basic chemistry. You should know things like protons and electrons and neutrons, and you should know what a periodic table at least looks like, as well as schnapps. The elements that are most essential for life stands for schnapps, and it's really easy to remember that one. Mnemonics are going to be your best friend because there is a lot of memorization, and the quicker you can absorb all that flashcard information, the better off you will be at understanding an actual topic as well as applying yourself in the classroom as well as on an exam. So you should know things like covalent bonds, ionic bonds, what's a hydrogen bond, and what's the difference between all of those. You should be able to draw 6, 7, 8 water molecules on a piece of paper and show the hydrogen bonds as well as the other bonds that are in there, and you should be able to identify which bonds those are. This is where you talk about biological molecules. You should know what an isomer is. You should know the difference between a polymer and a monomer. You should know what a hydrocarbon is. And then there are the groups. You're going to have to memorize the groups. There's hydroxyl, carboxyl, amino, phosphate, methyl, and there might be more depending on what your professor has you learn. You should know what a carbohydrate is. You should know what an enzyme is, as well as the definition for a catalyst. There are also monosaccharides, disaccharides, and polysaccharides, and you have to know the difference between those two. Let's not forget starch, glycogen, cellulose, fats, lipids and phospholipids, saturated fatty acids, unsaturated fatty acids, steroids, cholesterol. You need to know what deoxyribose nucleic acid is. You probably already have a guess. Adenosine triphosphate, that you're gonna know exactly what that is pretty soon. Don't forget your nucleotides. There is a difference between something that is adhesive and something that is cohesive. You should know that amphipathic means hydrolyphic and hydrophobic. Now that we've understood everything below life, you can understand things about life. Isn't that nice? You just learned about all this chemistry, and now you get to learn about cells. Yay. Now you're fine. Now it's biology. Now we're just taking the first real step, and we're gonna talk about cells. So first, prokaryotic versus eukaryotic. You should be able to draw a plant cell, and it should include all of these things, and you should know what all those things do. Oh, and you need to do the exact same thing for an animal cell too. You should be able to name as many differences and similarities as you possibly can between plant and animal cells. You should know that the smallest unit of life is a cell. By now you should know how important ATP is. You should also be able to explain where the energy comes from. Where does it come from? Now we need to talk about transportation. Okay, we know the vocab, we know about molecules, we know about biomolecules, and we even know about cells. Well, we don't know enough about cells yet, so we're gonna delve even deeper. We're gonna talk about transportation.